And we'll still have our in-house consultants here, election consultants, retired Captain Umar Aliyu, and of course Dr. Abiola, and we have been looking at elections here. Nyota, you have a couple of other issues.
Yes, I was going to look at the length of time between the voting process and the results. You know, at that point in time, when we talk about structures to manage the peak and what do you call it now? The climax and anticlimax. You know. Do you think the length of time between the voting and the announcement of the results adds to this heightened anticipation?
Most of the time, when you talk about these anxiety levels, you discover they are hyped. There are feeders to the anxiety levels. So we should also have, you know, efforts to bust such anxiety levels. Speed may not be one of them. If we decide to collapse the time between when the elections are concluded and when the results are announced, there could be a flip side to that coin or a downside to that coin. People will start probably questioning accuracy and one or two other things. But for me, from the point you cast your vote onto the point the elections, the results are announced, all you need to do is be patient. And I always say it that in as much as the agents and the people counted the votes physically at the polling station, then whatever time it takes before INEC collates and announces, all you want to look out for is that the numbers you counted are in sync with what is announced. So if some people are going about now trying to get irritated or excited about certain things, we can say it's premature. But then there will be some isolated cases like the ones we are seeing here, where you have people coming out with a concern. And when they come out with that concern, there's going to be what I want to now call the sociology of mob action. When I say mob action, I mean crowd. You see, from the two sides of the table, the average protester is actually profiling the security operative. The security operative is also profiling the protester. And that is where we can say this unseen thing we call body language comes to play. So when you come forward, you saw the gentlemen, and what happened? They were actually talking. You saw the ladies. What is happening?
Yeah. Sorry, can I say something?
Yeah.
Because I think we need to understand.
By all means.
Hold on. You will have your say. If I don't explain it to you properly,
let him
land. Explain it to you properly. You will
react.
get it. Okay. Now, if you approach someone who has been trained, okay, and the moment you come, you have actually been trained. Yes, you are a policeman. You've gone through all the training. You profile the subject, and you feel this subject is going to be aggressive based on what the subject did. That could actually account for part of your responses. Now, the same thing with the subjects. The moment you come forward and you profile the way the police people respond to you, that could also influence what you are going to do. So for both parties, it is key. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is this. Yes, there were women. Yes, the policemen were men. Then we saw man to man now. And you saw gentlemen or men talking to, and at the end of the day, the INEC official came, they had their say.
And that's the gender discussion there.
Exactly, and I don't want us to answer that, but you know, some people will say.
Excuse me,
don't
bring gender into this.
Marco, let him land, because the doctor will react.
By all means.
I know she will. Of course, we're open to.
No, absolutely.
What I'm saying is, don't bring the man-woman thing into this.
No, it's not a matter
of man. It's not a gender thing.
It's not a matter of man-woman. Maybe let me explain.
Okay,
I think we need to start from
okay.
asking some questions. So why should they be out? What were the issues that they were raising? They were talking about
genuine issues.
Yes, those issues are very genuine. So it doesn't matter whether it's a man that is talking about it or it's a woman. So what we're looking at is the reaction. Now, I watched that yesterday, and that was a huge crowd. and they were chanting, dancing, and all that. And we didn't see the kind of reaction by the police what they did today with the women. Now, the women got there. Yes, you believe that they are vulnerable and this and that, but it might also be possible that the policeman heading the team might think, well, let's tear gas them, these women. If we tear gas them, they will run away, and we'll be able to disperse them. And that's where the gender issue comes in. You know, by that they were doing that, you think, well, they are women. If we scare them off, they will be able to go. So you can follow that line of thought. But the most important issue is about police being able to manage crisis. Exactly. Yesterday, what I saw yesterday had a more possibility of degenerating to a full-blown boah that we cannot even resolve in River State. And if we also look back, and that's why the role of police is also important, you know, so that they're also very neutral in whatever they're doing. We have seen protests in Lagos where police, they were there with them, working with them, you know, making sure that, you know, they did everything right. So why can't they do that same thing to the women this morning?
Yeah, but you know that they also have a duty to protect the INEC office. And if they've been told, if the instruction is, under no circumstance should anybody get close. Because yesterday, as you rightly said, was a close one. The men got very close to the gate. Yes. They even had the INEC official come out. I was going to ask...
And they were still engaging them.
I was going to ask Captain Aliyu whether that was not too dangerous. Because you have the INEC official come out to address the crowd. They were very, very close to him.
That's exactly what I'm trying to make you understand. That in such scenarios, a lot of unwritten rules come to play. And it has to do with interaction, it has to do with body language, it has to do with understanding, it also has to do with circumstances. As close as we are to the announcement of results, you should expect it to get more difficult for you to go anywhere. As at yesterday, people were still polling, isn't it? Now, we're looking at a situation where results are already in those offices and are being prepared to be sent to the collation centers. But by and large, the bottom line there is policing is basically what I want to call social engineering. If you really understand the people, you understand their values, you understand the social nuances.
Well, maybe that's what Dr. Akedo was trying to say about the management of this issue.
How you manage it is simply the best way to go about diffusing it. Okay?
And that has to do with the leadership at that point in time.
Yes, indeed.
The person who is making that decision.
So
my point is that the person making the decision yesterday probably is different from the person making the decision today. Maybe if the head of the team yesterday is the same person today, probably.
But you do also take into cognizance what he said about the time difference between the
time scales.
Yeah. Time scales. Yeah. We're almost at the point of announcing results.
Yes.
We're still far from announcing results.
Just for example,
so the reactions will be different.
Let me give you an example. If there was a protest in Abuja on Saturday morning and they headed for that collation center venue right now, the police or the security agencies may not be as rigid and stern as if anybody starts a protest now and wants to go in there.
You know, Dr. Abiola, I want you to come in here. You said something talking about the person or for instance, the officer in charge, and you know, maybe the person different from who managed this particular yesterday, quite different. What comes to mind here is about institution. Let's go back to looking at building institutions so that when they act well in unison, knowing full well that this is the way it must be, this is the way it should be, irrespective of who's there. So it doesn't look like, oh, because Mr. A is in charge of State B, that is why they have been this orderly or this chaotic. What else can we do, especially as we are getting to see some form of reformation within our security agencies?
Well, I think it goes back to the discussion in the morning about capacity building. I think there's a need to retrain police officers about people's management, especially when it comes to issues of election and which for me, managing election issues is quite different from managing. There'll be a lot of anger, there'll be a lot of anxiety. People are anxious. Look at, I was looking at, I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I said it's better the Jagger comes on here by 12 o'clock because people are counting time, they're anxious. So it's important for us to build that capacity, to have that capacity building for the police to be able to manage people, especially at tense situation, to be able to also understand the dynamics. Also, and most importantly, also to be able to understand the gender of it. That's also very important. So that you know when you're dealing with the women, you also know when you're dealing with the men. And you can also understand the sensitivity of both sexes.